Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Exit to Excel. My name is Latanya. They call me LT, and I am a career strategist, a talent advisor, and a former HR leader. Now, I'm also someone who has been in the room when offers get built, and I've also been the one to extend offers to candidates who we've selected for new positions. Now, if you've been following me, you know that for the past 2 weeks, we talked about interviews. The week before last, we talked about all the mental preparation behind interviews, dealing with the anxiety, dealing with the imposter syndrome, and dealing with the times that your mind goes completely blank in the middle of an interview and you can barely remember your name. Now, last week we talked about the tactical preparation, how to deal with different conversations, different scenarios like a one on one interview and a panel interview. So, if you have not yet watched those, then go back and watch them because those are setting you up for what we're talking about today. And that is getting the offer of your dreams for your ideal role. Now, this is the thing about this stage. This isn't where, when you get the offer, this isn't the point where the game ends. It's actually the start of a new match. And this is one where the stakes are higher, the timelines are tighter, and the pressure can throw off even those that are very seasoned at getting and negotiating offers. But this is the thing, the ones who are able to negotiate the best offers are the ones who come up and execute on the perfect strategy. So, with this episode, we're going to talk about how to exactly evaluate an offer beyond base salary using insider frameworks. You will understand employer negotiation tactics and how to respond to them strategically. You will have a systematic process to decide between one or more offers with precision and not panic. You're also going to be able to walk away with AI powered tools for negotiation scripts, offer comparisons, and discussion frameworks. And then finally, I'm going to tell you how you can request my free offer comparison matrix and negotiation script bank. And as always, I'm going to share with you some very useful AI prompts that will help you customize scripts that actually work. And I'm also going to share with you some of the insider information from the employer side of things that most people don't know about. Now, if you've been following me in this series, you know we're talking about stop applying, start completing, and bring your A game to the job search. Because at the end of the day, it is a game. So if you have not already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this with somebody who can use it because I know there's a lot of people out there looking for jobs. And despite all the games that are being played with the unemployment rate, there are many of us out there who knows that the competition is tighter and the jobs are becoming less and less. So you can't afford to take anything to chance. So make sure you're following me and you're sharing this with people who desperately need this information. Now, next week, I'm going to talk about something that's going to be very timely, and that is for my college new grads. Because at the end of the day, it's a new day and there are new rules. So I'm going to share with recent college grads how you can win in today's brutal job market and share with you specific strategies for this unemployment crisis that's currently going on, hitting new graduates as companies are pulling back on entry level hiring. But first, let's now talk about some questions or address some questions that some people submitted this week on my social media. And again, I've been holding some of these back that would be very applicable to this to today's discussion. Okay, so I have a question from Marcus, and Marcus says, "Hey, I got my first offer in 5 years, but I have no idea if it's a good offer. So, how do I even begin to start to determine whether it's a good offer or not? So, Marcus, this is exactly why we need systematic evaluation frameworks. Most people compare offers just based on their current situation and just looking at the base salary. But I'm going to show you how you can look at the total package to be able to determine if it's a good and solid offer. So, thank you for your question. So, the next question comes from Jennifer. I have two companies I've been interviewing with, and they've been moving really fast. One has made an offer, but the other one says that theirs isn't coming until next week. How can I manage this so I don't lose either one? So, Jennifer, you're actually in a very good position, and this is a dream scenario that will require some strategic orchestration. So, I'm going to talk about that in today's podcast, how you can manage these two situations so that you're able to maximize it to your benefit. So, stay tuned and thank you for your question. So, I have another one from James who reached out to me, I think, on TikTok, and I'm going to paraphrase here. So, James' situation says, or was, after being laid off earlier this year, I received 3 job offers. I made my decision, but I feel bad about declining the other two. What is your thought process about declining job offers for the one that best aligns with you, especially for emotional and pensive thinkers like myself? So, James and I actually had a couple of exchanges related to this topic. And at the end of the day, I like to remind people that you have to do what is best for you. And if you are thoroughly evaluating your offers and based on the information and even your gut, and is telling you that this is the route that you should take, then I would say you ought to be at peace. Now, I had a situation one time where I had pretty much accepted a job, and but I had already committed to interview with another company, and I didn't want to break that commitment. So I told the company, well, no, I hadn't actually accepted the job. I had told them that I was 90% going to accept the job, but I wanted to fulfill my obligation to interview with this other company before I totally committed, and I would be able to get back to them right after I complete the other interview. Well, when I interviewed with the other company, and once I learned more about the role, I was like, you know what? This role that I had last interviewed for was extremely challenging. It was extremely messy, and it was really in my wheelhouse versus the first company that I had told them I had 90% made my decision. It was in a more narrow role. It was in a very established organization. And quite honestly, it was going to be the easier of the two. And when I tell you, when I was driving home after the second interview, that I was almost physically sick because my spirit was telling me that I really need to take this second role because I felt like it was going to be more beneficial for me in the long run. I went back to the first company. I said, look, I know I had expressed my intent to accept this role, but looking at all the factors and based on where I am in my career, I really do feel like it's in my best interest to accept this other role. Now, they came back, increased the salary. They were allowing me to work from home a couple of days a week because it was a long commute. And even the recruiter who had referred me called me and pleaded with me to take the job. But I told her, I am so sorry. But again, my spirit and my gut is telling me that I need to take this other role that, quite honestly, the organization was a mess. And even though I felt bad about turning them down after I'd pretty much given them my commitment, after a while I was at peace because I really felt like that's where I need to be. And now looking back over that situation and the experience that I had, it was absolutely the best decision to make. So you will sometimes come into those situations. And again, I think if you look at all the information and you look at where you are in your career and you really think hard about what is best for you, I trust that your gut and your spirit will guide you in the right direction. And you just have to be at peace with that decision. So, thank you for your question as well, James. So keep those questions coming. I love it. Great conversations. Again, use the hashtag AskLT. You can comment, send me a DM on any of my social media, Exit to Excel. That's at Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, you can comment right here below on my YouTube channel. And again, if you have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button. Share this information with people who need it. I do give tips here and there on my social media, but this is where I'm giving the deep dive and the insider information that you are probably not going to find anywhere else. So, with that, let's get started with today's discussion. So, what separates people who approach this with an elite athletic mindset and those who kind of just go through the motions and, by chance? It's the ones who have the systematic frameworks to ensure that they are making strategic decisions and not just decisions based on emotional reactions. Now, when you think about a professional athlete, right, and they are negotiating these contracts, they're not just taking a look at the salary, they are taking a look at the bigger picture. They are looking at the long term career implications and they are negotiating from a position of strategic strength. And that's exactly what we need when we are looking at different job offers. So I want to introduce to you the Championship Offer Protocol, the COP. And it's a framework that I've developed that turns any offer situation into a strategic advantage. So, what does COP stand for? The C stands for comprehensive evaluation. And this is where you are analyzing total compensation and hidden value beyond just the salary. The O stands for offer optimization. This is the psychology, the timing, and negotiation strategies that maximize your leverage. And then finally, P. P stands for precision decision making. And this is where you are using strategic frameworks to choose or decline an offer with confidence. Now, this is the thing that we don't tell candidates. We expect you to negotiate. So when you get that first offer, more than likely it is not their best and final offer. But at the end of the day, a lot of people don't negotiate and they accept the first offer that is given to them. And so when you do that, already we're kind of looking at you a little, because one, it shows us that you're green or that you're insecure and that you're not used to negotiating in high level deals. So you always, my philosophy has been to never accept the first offer. Now I will share with you a time that I did and I never forgot it. And again, this is when you're making decisions based on emotion. I was in between jobs, I'd been laid off, and I interviewed with an entertainment company in Rockefeller Plaza. Now, as you can imagine, an entertainment company in Rockefeller Plaza, I went to their office. I see the pictures of the artists on the wall. I'm hearing stories from the employees about seeing this musician and this artist. And I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that I can potentially be working here. I was at home, or I was at my mom's house actually in North Carolina. And I got the call from the hiring manager saying, hey, Latanya, this is so and so. And I'm pleased to present you with an offer for this HR business partner role. Your salary is going to be so and so, and we want you to start on so and so date. Do you accept? I said, yes. He said, okay, great to hear. We'll be following up with you with the written offer and next steps. As soon as I hung up, I was like, what did I do? I had accepted their first offer, which was significantly lower than what I should have been paid, and it was a little bit lower than what my last role was. But because I had given them my verbal consent, I didn't feel comfortable going back and say, "You know what? I changed my mind. I really want to take the role at this salary." I couldn't do that. So what did I do? I said, "Okay, well, okay, I have a couple of visitors here." Okay, so I said, "Okay, well, after 6 months, I'm gonna go back and renegotiate my salary," which I did. After 6 months, I had thoroughly prepared. I made a note of all of my accomplishments to date, and I went back and outlined and reminded them of all the qualifications and credentials that I had come into the role with. And I met with my manager and said, "Hey, based on my, you know, performance to date and my accomplishments, I would like to respectfully, request a salary increase based on these things." So he sat there and listened. He said, "Okay, well, let me talk to, his boss and I'll get back to you." They came back to me and it was a flat no. Okay, then. So at that point, I started looking for another job, but I never forgot about that moment when I readily accepted that job when he first called and gave me the verbal offer. And I never accepted the first offer from that point on. So if you don't learn anything else, know that that first offer is not their best and final offer. And we do expect you to negotiate. Okay. So, how does this framework change the game? It changes it because you are able to evaluate the offer systematically. And instead of just focusing on the salary, which most people do, you are going to take a look at and understand the total value. So instead of accepting or rejecting offers in isolation, you're actually going to create strategic leverage through timing and communication. So the the championship offer protocol, ensures that you are making decisions from strategic strength and not emotional gratitude. So let's go over the C in comprehensive evaluation. This is about seeing the full value picture that goes way beyond the salary number that gets all the attention. Now, look, in HR, we know that candidates obsess over the salary. That is mainly what they're focused on. And so that is why some offers look stronger than they really are. We can hold the base pay steady, but make the package far more valuable or less valuable, but it's in ways that candidates will miss completely. So here are the 10 elements that make or break an offer. One is the signing bonus. This is upfront cash, sometimes taxed differently from than salary, and it's often negotiable. A second one are performance bonuses. These can be annual or quarterly, percentage based or flat, tied to individual or company metrics. Thirdly, equity and stock options. There are different vesting schedules, strike prices, post termination exercise windows that can all be negotiated. Did you know that you can also negotiate your PTO and holidays? Even the carryover rules, accrual rates, and paid company shutdowns. Now, note for PTO and holidays, sometimes they aren't as flexible on that because they have a company handbook and it's documented and they don't want too many variances around that, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Then you have the retirement match. These are your employee contributions, your vesting timelines, your investment options. Professional development budget. Hey, are there conferences and certifications and advanced degrees in coaching that they can pay for you? Relocation assistance. You can negotiate the amount that's given to you, whether it's a lump sum or reimbursement. Are they going to offer temporary housing? What are the callback terms? All of those are negotiable. Healthcare coverage. Again, this might be a little bit more difficult, but again, it doesn't hurt to ask. Those can be around your premiums, your deductibles, your mental health and vision coverage, family plans. Flexibility. Now, this is a big one considering that we have been in a complete remote environment to more hybrid. Maybe you want to switch that up a little bit to negotiate more remote or work from home days. Also, travel requirements. Are there flexible hours you can do? Are there compressed work weeks you can do? Those are all things that you can request. And then finally, this is something that's becoming more popular, severance terms. Now, these are rarely offered up front. Sometimes you'll see those more for higher level positions, maybe VP and above, but sometimes they are negotiable for leadership roles. So it does not hurt to ask. And I think that we've been seeing more candidates ask about severance terms or negotiating those terms along with their offer. So again, it doesn't hurt to ask. But these are all elements that can make or break an offer, and all are negotiable. Okay, so I'm going to share with you now an AI prompt that you can use for a comprehensive evaluation. And this is something we're going to put down below. You can cut and paste it and use it as you need it. And I'm also, if you stick with me till the end, I'm going to share with you two specific tools that are excellent for this. Of course, you can use chat, your things like Chat GPT and Claude and maybe even Perplexity, but there are two other tools actually that are very, very well suited for this. But here's the prompt. Help me evaluate this job offer comprehensively. The base salary, you'll put that in, and list all the benefits and prerequisites. Compare this to industry standards for the particular role and in what location. What is the estimated total compensation value? What questions should I ask to understand the complete package? What hidden value might I be missing? So you can enter that prompt into an AI and it will help you understand what is the estimated total compensation value. This is especially helpful if you are looking at multiple offers, and we're going to talk about that more in detail later on in the podcast. Now, here is an offer evaluation checklist by which you can assign a point um, to each component so that you are looking at it from a quantitative standpoint versus, just a cursory um, evaluation or even, basing it more on emotion. So you have the financial components, and these are, of course, going to weigh more heavily, 40 points total. That's where you're looking at the base salary competitive with market, the bonus incentive structure aligned with performance, equity stock options and realistic upside, and benefits package comprehensive and valuable. So you're going to assign 10 points for each of those things. Also, look at the career growth components. So, a lot of times, depending on where you are in your career, you want to know what is the trajectory. So, you want to make sure that you're having those conversations before accepting an offer. So, you want to understand what is the clear advancement pathway and timeline. That's worth 10 points. Professional development, budget, and support, another 10 points. Role scope and learning opportunities, you can assign that another 10 points. So altogether, that's going to be 30 points in your decision matrix. Lifestyle components, this is worth 20 points. Work flexibility assigned with preferences, location and commute considerations, company culture and values alignment. Then you have your risk assessment components. These would include the company's financial stability and growth trajectory, industry outlook, and job security. So all of these are going to total 100 points. Anything that scores 80 points or more are worth giving serious consideration. Anything between 60 and 79 points, hey, that's a decent offer, but there may be opportunities to negotiate some components. And then anything below 60 points probably consist of, some areas where there is some major improvements that may be warranted. Now, again, some of these, even though I've given you kind of the scoring that goes with it, depending on what's most important to you, you may decide to assign different points to some of these things. So you can customize this however you want to, but this is, standard based on how most people prioritize these different components. Now, at the end of today's episode, I'm also going to share with you some invaluable tools for comparing multiple job offers where you can paste in all the details and it will automatically calculate for you the total value, where there might be gaps, and even suggest some negotiation points. So you want to stay tuned for that. Now, depending on the industry you're in, there may be some additional considerations that you want to consider. And these would be in the technology, healthcare, finance, and consulting and startup industries. For example, in technology, sometimes equity can be a massive value creator. And so you might want to focus more on the company's growth potential and vesting acceleration clauses more than you would in another industry. Another one that's unique is startups. A lot of times, your startups are going to be more equity based than salary, with the expectation that when the company goes public or as it scales, there'll be more upside. But the higher risk is that, your compensation, maybe your total compensation may be impacted. So you'll definitely want to understand the dilution and liquidation preferences. But those are two examples of industry specific evaluation considerations that you'll want to keep in mind. Okay, so let's talk about the O in COP, and that is offer optimization. This is where psychology meets strategy and where a lot of people often leave money on the table. Now, in HR, we often have people coming to us complaining about coworkers making more than them despite doing the same role. And I like to remind people, hey, you don't get what you deserve, you often get what you negotiate. So the people who tend to be the better negotiators tend to, one, know their value and are able to position it to their advantage. And they are also tend to be better negotiators. They do their homework and they're able to present a very strong argument. Because at the end of the day, these variances in salaries are normal. There is no written rule that every person doing the same job has to be paid the same exact thing. Because at the end of the day, there are so many different variables that come into play when it comes to salaries. One, market conditions change. So, for example, if you have been in the role for 10 years and 10 years later, there's a higher demand on that skill or that particular role, then people being hired after you are probably going to come in at a higher salary. Two, your specific background and credentials. I remind people all the time, do you know what credentials the other person had, or their background, their experience, their education? Probably not, but sometimes those will also warrant a higher salary. Three is the leverage that you had during the negotiation process. Again, that's where your negotiation skills come into play. And then four, things that you may not know are budget constraints at the time of your hire. So those are all the things that come into play when we are bringing people into an organization, and that can cause those variances. Now, at the end of the day, we do have ranges that we try to stay within, but sometimes, depending on the factors I just mentioned, we may be bringing people in at the very top of that range or maybe even above that range, and that's completely normal. That's why this offer stage is so important. Okay, so let's talk about when you are negotiating and how you should approach it and the rules that actually work. Rule one is that you want to anchor high. You want to counter above your target so that there's room to land where you want. Now, I think most of us have probably purchased a car before, and you go on a car lot and maybe you offer the car for a lot lower than what you expect to pay for it. Again, it's the same thing with negotiating a job offer. You want to counter very high so that there's room to land where you want. Rule number two, bundle ask. This is where you want to bundle your salary and perks together, not just one element at a time. Rule number three, justify your position with market data and value. Never say that, hey, I have a family to support or I have kids in college, because quite frankly, we don't care. So you're better off basing your position on market research and the value that you bring. And then rule number four, keep it collaborative. No one wants someone who comes in, entitled or negative or brash. You want to always communicate your enthusiasm and your gratitude towards being offered the role, and stating things like, hey, I'm excited and here is what would make this a perfect fit, versus, hey, this is what I demand. Because at the end of the day, that kind of turns us off, and a lot of times we will decide not to budge or even just decide to go with another candidate. So you always want to make it very, very collaborative. So now I'm going to share with you some strategic negotiation script frameworks that you can use in various situations. So, when you're first negotiating, an opening script would be something like, hey, I'm genuinely excited about this opportunity, and I want to make sure we structure this in a way that sets us up both for success. So, based on my research of whatever your industry benchmarks are, and the scope of the position, along with a specific value I can bring in your SOAP area, I was expecting something in the range of X to Y range. If we can get closer to that, along with whatever specific benefit you've identified, I'd be thrilled to sign and start contributing. Other alternative scripts would include, hey, I understand that budget constraints are real. So if a salary adjustment isn't possible, I'm wondering if we can explore other ways to bridge the gap, whether that's additional equity, a faster review cycle, enhanced professional development budget, or flexible working arrangements. What options might work within your framework? Now, this is something that I personally have used and something that I've seen other people coming into organizations I've supported use as well. We have been flexible in terms of accelerating their maybe their merit increase, or increasing their signing bonus, or agreeing to pay for a professional certification, or agreeing to pay for them going to a conference. So if they aren't able to budge on the salary, and again, because remember we have those ranges, then you want to be prepared to figure out, well, what are some of the other aspects of your package can you negotiate? And then you have some of the other ones, a value based justification script. And this is where you are outlining and again reaffirming the value that you're bringing to the role. So a script would be, hey, based on my track record, I believe I can deliver your specific value in this role. Market research shows similar positions in this area typically compensate in the range of this for that level of impact. Now, interestingly enough, I remember when I graduated from grad school and they presented me with an offer. And I think I had gotten comfortable with negotiating because I used to see my daddy negotiate on a car lot, right? So I was comfortable countering, even at that early part of my career. And so I went back and I said, hey, I really appreciate this offer, but I don't feel that it really reflects the experience that I'm coming into the organization. Because before I went to grad school, I had worked for 6 years. So I had already been in the workforce. I had already obtained a number of skills and experience versus someone who went straight from undergrad to grad. Well, when I had the conversation with them, guess what they said? You know what? You're exactly right. Let us come back to you. And they ended up increasing my offer by like $7,000 or $8,000. So again, it does not hurt to ask. As they say, Closed mouths don't get fed. Now, here is an AI prompt for your negotiating scripts. Based on this offer, you can paste in the details. Help me draft a professional counter proposal that increases my total value by at least 10% without solely focusing solely on base salary. Include the market justification and multiple options for the employer. So once you get that script, you will want to practice it so that it comes across naturally and you come across um, with confidence. You want to come across confidently versus being very skimmish and insecure and unsure. So you definitely want to practice these so that it comes across as an authentic conversation. Now, when you get the response from the company, and a lot of times it is the recruiter who is having the conversation with you or the HR business partner. And I expect that in this process, you've probably somewhat built a rapport with them. So it can be a very natural and comfortable conversation. Here are some responses that you can use to be able to continue to have a very productive conversation. So, if they come back with this is our best and final offer, you can say something like, "Hey, I appreciate your transparency, but can you help me understand what drives the constraints? Is it budget limitations? Is it internal equity or company policy? Understanding the framework might help me think about other ways we can structure this to work for the both of us." Now, if they come back and say, "Hey, we don't negotiate salaries," you can say something like, "Hey, I understand the policy perspective. Are there other elements of the total compensation package that might have some flexibility, such as the start date, professional development budget, or work arrangements that could help bridge any gaps?" And then another one is, "Hey, you don't have the experience to justify a higher compensation." Your response could be something like, "Hey, I appreciate that feedback. Can we discuss what specific experience or achievements would justify the compensation I'm seeking? I'd love to understand the path to get there and potentially structure an accelerated review based on delivering those results." Now, I will say that it's not guaranteed that you're always going to get everything that you want, despite the best of the scripts, right? But again, it's up to you to decide whether you still feel comfortable proceeding or whether it's worth you still exploring. But again, as I remind people, oftentimes it doesn't ask to hurt. And you definitely can't get what you don't ask for. So, again, you just have to be comfortable knowing your value and asking for the things that you think you deserve. Now, I will share with you, and I think, people who know me, I've shared this story before. I had interviewed with a company in New Jersey and I was already working, but I was feeling kind of stagnant and I wanted a new challenge. So I started interviewing. And my first interview was a panel interview of three or four people. And I didn't feel like it went very well, but they actually called me before I got home from the interview to invite me back to interview with the hiring manager, which I did. I had my interview with her, and I recall that I really didn't feel a strong connection or rapport with her, but the interview went okay nonetheless. Well, she called me back for another interview. And if I can recall correctly, I think I ended up meeting with her 3 times, right? They presented me with the offer, and again, except for that one time that I accepted it, over the phone, the verbal offer, I've always negotiated my job offers. They made the offer, and I said, "Thank you so much for your offer. I would like some time to look over it and come back to you with any questions that I have," which I also advised you do. When I give you the offer, buy some time, ask them for time to be able to review it in total and come back with any questions that you may have. So I went through it and I made my list of questions and requests. They were around the job title. I understood that they had their internal job structure and leveling, but I wanted to know if it would be okay if I used a different level title externally so that it wouldn't look like I had taken a step back in my career. Another one was because in New Jersey, my commute was going to be 45 minutes long. I wanted to know if it would be okay in the days when we had bad weather, if I would be able to work from home. And of course, I negotiated the salary. And I believe there was one other thing that I'd asked about. So I'm having this conversation with the hiring manager, and I thought it odd for the benefits manager to call me and say, "Hey, Carol, the hiring manager, considered your request, and no, we can't budge on anything." And I was like, "Oh." And we need an answer in 24 hours. Oh, oh, okay. So I said, "Okay, I'll get back to you in 24 hours." So I thought about it. And at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? It's a new opportunity. It's a great company. This company had 401k, which I didn't have in my current company. So I said, okay, I'll just go ahead and take the role. So I called them back and said, okay, I accept. So the benefits manager sounded surprised, but she said, okay, we'll get back to you. And I thought that was kind of odd. 2 days later, the hiring manager calls me at like 6:30 in the evening. And so she left me a message. I called her back. I said, "Hey, Carol, this is Latanya. I got your message." She said, "Well, Latanya, I've been thinking about our conversations and I thought about your request. And so I've decided to rescind your offer." What? She said, "Yeah, I'm looking at everything you asked for. And I just feel like you don't really want this role." And I said, "Well, excuse me." I said, "If I didn't really want the role, I wouldn't have accepted it. And I'm completely comfortable with accepting it with the terms that we discussed." And we end up going to a back and forth until I finally told her, "You know what? Thank you," because I felt like I had dodged a bullet. Now, mind you, I had already resigned from my other company, which I also would advise you to never resign from your other company until you have signed and accepted an offer. And if you can, wait a couple of days so that if anything like this should happen, it doesn't get you into a bind. But mind you, here I had already resigned from my last company, and now I didn't have an offer with the new company. So what did I do? I went back to my old company and I expressed to them how I really didn't want to leave. This is an offer that I got from another company. Is there any way that you can match this or do something about my compensation? And they ended up increasing my salary like 5 or 6% during an off cycle. It was an off cycle increase. So I was fortunate enough that I was able to parlay that to my advantage. But again, that was a lesson to me that one, trust your gut when you're going through these negotiations, because when they had not conceded on any of my requests, that really told me everything I need to know about the organization and the hiring manager. And so that was another lesson that I never forgot. So you're welcome. Okay, so let's talk about the P in COP, and that is precision decision making under pressure. And this is about making strategic choices when your timelines are tight and the pressure is high. Now, note that as with anything, you say, "Hey, purchase this for 19.99 today, and it's only good for 24 hours." I mean, the high pressure tactic is a common tactic across any, course of business. And we also do it in HR with our candidates. And we do that because we don't want you to shop around. We really want to get you locked in to get, this complete as soon as possible. So if you can handle those situations professionally and ask for reasonable time, we can usually accommodate it. So just because they tell you that they need 24-hour notice, that normally isn't the case, and you can usually ask for more time. So I'm going to share with you a strategic decision matrix so that you can run your offer through this for a complete evaluation before you accept a decline in offer. So again, it's similar to what we talked about before, but there's a financial analysis, which is going to weigh 30%. There's a career growth analysis that's going to weigh 25%. You have your culture and fit analysis, which is going to weigh 20%. You have your strategic opportunity analysis, which is going to weigh 15%. And then you have your risk assessment analysis, which is going to weigh 10%. And you see the individual components underneath those. Now, again, based on where you are in your career and your priorities, you may want to weigh these differently. But this is based on how most people would weigh these different components. Now, here is an AI prompt for your decision matrix. Create a decision matrix comparing these offers based on my top 5 priorities. You want to list your priorities. And then you want to include your financial and non financial scoring with specific weightings. Help me identify the highest total value option. So, when you have multiple opportunities at play, your strategic timing is going to be even more critical. So you'll want to make sure that you're managing it so that you don't miss out on any opportunity. So your first phase that you can spend the first couple of days is going to be your information gathering. During this phase, you'll want to understand the company's timeline and constraints. You'll want to ask strategic questions about the flexibility and the total package. And then you'll want to assess your leverage with each opportunity. Phase two is where you're having strategic communication with the hiring manager or the HR department. And these are going to take place over days 4 through 7. You want to be transparent about the other opportunities that you have, but not with the appearance that you're creating a bidding war, because we don't like that. Okay. You just want to say, hey, I just want to be honest. I have another offer that I'm considering. So I want to make sure that I'm making the best decision, and then ask for whatever it is that you need, be it more time, or if you already know the components of the offer that you would like to negotiate. But you'll want to use the timelines to your advantage to create the appropriate urgency. And then you also want to focus more on mutual fit rather than just compensation. And then finally, during days 8 through 10, if you're able to stretch it out that long, this is when you're going to be going through your optimization and your decision. This is when you'll want to leverage your competing offers thoughtfully and professionally. You'll want to make your final request based on your complete information. And then you're finally going to decide based on the total strategic value and not just the highest offer. But again, just keep in mind for multiple offers, the ball is really in your court, but still you want to be able to juggle these in a way that is going to be to your advantage, not your disadvantage, and also in a way that is going to maintain the relationships with the other companies that you decline, because you never know when you may want to circle back with them to be considered for a role down the road. Okay. Now, let's talk about when you accept or decline offers and how you handle the follow up, because it's going to determine your professional reputation and your future opportunities. And I'm going to share with you this strategic acceptance framework that you can use to make sure that you are keeping your reputation intact and keeping the door open for future opportunities. Now, when you accept the offer, and hopefully you're able to do it within 24 hours if that's what you committed to, you want to do it with enthusiasm. Okay. You want to say, hey, I'm excited to confirm my acceptance of your offer. And you want to acknowledge whatever adjustments were made that you negotiated on, and state that you look forward to joining the team and contributing to whatever the specific company's goal is. And thank you for working with me to create a structure that sets us up both for success. Now, I would first have this conversation verbally with whoever made you the offer, but then I would also follow it up in an email, because again, what have we talked about? If it isn't in writing, it doesn't exist. But I would first have the verbal conversation and then follow up with an email. The written follow up should follow up within 48 hours. And this is where you are going to summarize the agreed upon terms, your start date, and next steps. And again, this is going to document everything that you all have talked about and agreed upon and prevent any misunderstandings. Now, once you accept the offer, that's really when your job in the organization starts. So you want to start relationship building even before your official start date. You can do this by connecting with key team members on LinkedIn. You want to ask about any onboarding materials. If you can get the company policy handbook to start reviewing that, that also is good, not only for you, but it shows your enthusiasm and engagement and commitment to the organization. And so I would definitely ask if you can get the company handbook in advance if you possibly can. Now, when you have declined an offer, that is just as important as how you accept an offer. So again, you want to decline offers so that it always keeps the door open for future opportunities. And here is a script that you can use to professionally decline an offer. And again, you're going to thank them for the generous offer and the time that they invested in the interview process, and explain why you decided to pursue the different opportunity. You don't have to go into great detail, but it does help to give them some insight into why you decided to go with the other company. And then also, as you see here, I have tremendous respect for the company and hope our paths might cross again in the future. So you're leaving that door open. If you want to keep the door open, you just want to start with that. You can say, "Hey, I want to thank you for this offer and express how impressed I was with so and so company. And while I've decided to accept another opportunity," and again, you want to give the brief reason, "you would love to stay connected as my career evolves." Now, I like this script to provide to the people that you interviewed with, and hopefully you got their contact information. You don't necessarily have to call them, you can provide that in an email. But again, it expands your network, but it also keeps the door open for future opportunities in that organization. And then finally, here I'm going to provide you with another AI script that you can use for these professional communications when you are declining an offer. Now, look, sometimes when we decline offers, and you're currently employed, your current employer will make a counter offer. Now, let me share something with you. We typically do not like to counter offer. And why? Because oftentimes, if you're already working and you've been looking for a job, it isn't always compensation driven. So if we are coming back with a change in your compensation and that's not the key driver for you leaving, then more than likely you're only going to stay to get that extra money and then use it as a negotiating tool to leave down the road. Data shows that 70% of people who accept counter offers, they end up leaving the company anyway within 12 months. So we often don't like to do that, but if your reason to leave is compensation driven and they come back with a counter offer, then it is something to consider. But if you get a counter offer and you're torn, here is a framework you can think through to decide whether it's worth staying and getting the, increase in salary or compensation, whatever terms they're offering you, or if it's in your best interest to go ahead and take the new opportunity. One is asking, hey, why are they suddenly able to increase your compensation? um, I know a year or two ago when there was high attrition, when, COVID, the pandemic, we were coming out of the pandemic and the job market was open and people were getting opportunities, and we were countering people like crazy. You have to ask, well, hey, if you weren't able to do this before, when I've been here, I've been committed, I've been dedicated, I've been doing a good job, and I'm only getting these menial increases, why now are you so committed or interested in being able to give me this increase in compensation? Is worth, having a discussion. Two, ask yourself, what were the underlying issues that made you job search? And again, it goes back to, is it just compensation driven? Because if it's not, then you will probably want to explore your current company changing the things that cause you the dissatisfaction. Three, if you decide to stay, how will this affect your relationships and your advancement potential? Now, in my last company, what people didn't know, if we made a counter offer, that often disqualified you for the upcoming merit increase. And a lot of people did not know that, or when we were offering or when we had a higher salary or merit increase pool that they were no longer eligible for, then they wanted to go back and try to renegotiate, but it was already too late. So you absolutely want to know, what are the implications for you getting this counter offer? What are the implications down the road? Because there may be some that you may not want to, opt out of. And then finally, think, okay, is this counter offer going to be a short term fix to a long term problem? Because if it is, then it isn't just a compensation. You want to take some look at some of the other things that may be coming into play for you. And if it's a long term problem, often those aren't going to be immediately fixed to the point where it is worth you foregoing the new opportunity. So, just some things to think about. Okay. So, this where you are with all we know for your offers and your multiple offers, how you can kind of manage those. So hopefully this has been helpful. Again, using the COP framework, the championship offer protocol. And again, I'm going to provide all the prompts and information down below so you can cut and paste them. And I'm going to give you an action plan in terms of how you can put this into play if you're currently interviewing and you're entertaining offers, or even how you can prepare for getting offers down the road. Because my expectation is that if you've been following this podcast and you've been putting into practice some of the things we've talked about, everything from your personal brand to your target market strategy to your LinkedIn profile, your resume, and your interviewing skills, you are going to get those offers. So you want to be prepared and prepare in advance if you can. So here's your action plan. One is request my free offer compensation metrics and negotiation script bank by going to info at exit2excel.com and put offers in the subject line. Send me that email and we're going to send you the matrix and the script bank that you can use to better evaluate and negotiate your offers. Two is run any current offers through the comprehensive evaluation framework that I've shared with you today. Three, practice your negotiation scripts, out loud until they feel natural. If you can practice them with someone, that's even better. And then next, create your personal decision matrix template based on your own priorities for future opportunities. Now, when you receive your next offer, you'll want to use the strategic pause to buy evaluation time. You'll want to complete the total compensation analysis using the 10 element framework that I shared with you. You'll want to assess your leverage honestly and plan your approach accordingly. Prepare your value based negotiation scripts if appropriate. And also, I'm offering a consultation with people who are evaluating offers or preparing to have these negotiations. So you can go to my link to schedule a 15 to 30-minute consult with me to assist you and or help you prepare. Now, for your long-term strategy, go ahead and build your market value so that you can always negotiate from strength. You want to know that in advance as opposed to rushing and trying to figure that out right before you are getting an offer. You want to maintain your professional network so that they are creating multiple opportunities for you. And then also, we talked about you want to make sure you're continuously documenting your achievements in your brag book for future negotiations, because that is where you are able to demonstrate the value you're going to bring to the organization that's going to give you more leverage. Okay. Now, as I told you in the beginning, I'm going to share with you some specific AI tools for you to use that is going to change the game for your next offer. Now, if you are comparing multiple job offers, try using the tool Notion AI or Airtable with AI integration. You can cut and paste all the details of your offer, everything, the salary, the bonuses, the benefits, the PTO, and all of that. And it's automatically going to calculate for you the total compensation package. It is going to flag for you where there may be gaps where, you can negotiate, and it's going to give you some negotiation points that you can use to go back. So I've been using that. I've been testing it out with other people, and I tell you, it is a game changer. And when you are able to come back with this information, it shows that one, you know your value, you've done your homework, and you're prepared. And it definitely sets you up in a stronger position to be able to negotiate and get the things that you are requesting. And if you want the exact AI prompt and setup that I use for these tools, then again, you can email me at info@exit2excel.com, and I'll be more than happy to share that with you. Okay. So remember, that's it for today. Next week, I'm going to be talking to the new grads, so college grads. So if you are a college grad, you know a college grad, make sure you tune in for next week because, again, the job market has drastically changed and it's not kind at all for new grads. And I'm talking specifically for these new grads because, being early career talent, getting in on these entry level positions is getting even more difficult and really requires a different strategy to do so. So I'm hoping you'll join me then. But for today, and as we're talking about offers and stuff, remember that every offer really is an opportunity to practice strategic thinking and professional negotiation skills. So even if you don't get everything that you want, again, as I've shared with you, when I've negotiated successfully and not successfully, all of it has been invaluable lessons for me going forward, and that I'm also able to share with you. So, no negotiation is a bad negotiation. Okay. So, with that, remember, follow me, share, subscribe, like. Follow me on my social media, Exit to Excel, on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Send me a message on my DM, in my comments, even here on YouTube. You can send me an email at info@exit2excel.com. And so until next week, I wish and pray that you get so many outstanding offers. You have a hard time choosing, and you finally land in the job of your dreams and being paid the value that you deserve. So with that, I'll see you next week. Thank you.